Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us.
It's kicked more metres than any other team in the Six Nations. Ireland were bottom of that list, by the way. They were sixth. They passed more than anyone else. But France, a kicking team, and they pitched up in Dublin, and in the first half in particular refused to kick the ball. Ireland had more kicks than France, 38 to 35, which was unexpected. Apparently Galtier wasn't impressed that this happened, and they did kick more in the second half. We had Ronan O'Gara on yesterday. He was saying that the players seem to have noted the quibbles in the French media that France are too much of a kicking team. They're betraying the Gallic flair. And they almost just sort of seem to go for it and say, let's have a cut. And, you know, Rod just talked to us about someone like Penau, who is this glorious runner, but has to traditionally go against his natural instincts and just kick the ball as opposed to running it. There seemed to be a degree of France saying, well, to hell with this. Oh, away we go. And maybe it was self-defeating, the glorious try aside.
Well, the momentum that France have been generating over the past number of months with the victories, you know, they were going for a record, 14 victory at the weekend and didn't get there. It was built on a certain style. Like, emotionally, after the game, if I was in the French dressing room, I'd be a bit confused because they played against the best team in the world in Dublin. But they were the only team to beat Ireland twice in the Northern Hemisphere in the last couple of seasons. So this French team is thereabouts. But I just felt that they got very confused in what they were trying to do. If you look at, there was a total of 21 lineouts in the game, and there was an unbelievable only 5 scrums in the game. And you compare that to the other 2 fixtures, like there was 35 lineouts in the England-Italy game and 34 in Scotland. So those extra lineouts, those extra scrums give the Fatties a huge opportunity to regain composure, to regain energy, but also to control the tempo of the fixture. And like, again, as I said, in the opening 10, 15 minutes, whatever France threw at Ireland, Ireland's defensive system was extraordinarily comfortable. So much so it came flying up out of the line constantly. There was lots of tackles missed, and probably the Penau try was where the brunt of the tackles were missed. There was errors and mistakes, but nothing France did at any stage really would say, wow. And my feeling after the game was that if you took that try out, France should be pretty confused about where they stand. Are they going to go back to the kicking game you're talking about? Or are they going to start kind of like the likes of Antonio, etc.? Are they going to say, well, they're luxuries to be carrying because there isn't enough. We didn't create enough field possession, but we didn't structured play to bring those guys into it. And they were lost because it's just the pace of the game, the pace the way Ireland played. And that's without the likes of some of the great players we expect to be starting for Ireland weren't there for all obvious reasons. So a huge compliment to those guys who came in. Tom O'Toole as an example. But I'm a bit confused about what France need to do next, because they're carrying some monsters, and on the bench they've even bigger monsters, yet they didn't play a style of game that would lend to it. And then when Penau scored the try, then you'd say, well, why can't we play that? But I felt they just didn't get the balance right, and I think Ireland did.
They remind me a little bit of Ireland in 2019. I thought they flagged a little bit as 2022 went on. I thought their November, while they got the results, wasn't as impressive. They relied on some individually brilliant moments, which, you know, it's great to have them, but they didn't look as cohesive or as comprehensive as they were in the Six Nations. They didn't go on a serious June tour or July tour. They went to Japan, and they left a lot of their players at home, which I think is the right decision considering the amount of volume that those players play across the top 14 season. And I don't think this game will damage them in the same way that losing to England did at the start of the Six Nations in 2019 did to Ireland, but I do think it'll give them a chance to reset. I always thought 2 Grand Slams in a row was going to be a massive ask for this team, who had to go to Dublin and Twickenham this spring. Galtier is, from what you hear, is quite an intense, demanding and difficult character. So having him at the helm for 4 years, I think his voice can become a little bit like Schmidt or an Eddie Jones. It can become repetitive, it can get lost, and maybe it's no harm that they went against him once and then lost from their point of view, so that he can go into them and go, well, you've tried your way, let's go back to my way and Sean Edwards' way. This could be the right defeat at the right time for that France team. At the same time, you got to also appreciate there's a massive crisis going on in French rugby because their president has been prosecuted for he's been prosecuted. If I use the wrong words, I could end up getting us all in trouble. He's been prosecuted. He's had to resign. He's very close to Galtier. He's created the conditions for the French team to be as good as they are. That has to have some sort of knock-on effect. How tangible that is, but also the pressure they're under. They're hosts at this World Cup next year, and that's fine 18 months out. But as that gets closer and closer, the pressure that will put on these players to perform and get better and better and do it their way. And if they're getting criticised for their style, they're hearing that every day. They've very few away games left, so I do think there are things that they're trying to work out as they get to that World Cup. They'll be very good when they get there. They were still very impressive at times on Saturday, but they're good. They're going through their own stuff, and they were never going to be perfect all the way through to the World Cup. 14 in a row is a huge achievement. Like, there's a reason only teams have only very rare as it being 18, 19.
Yeah, and there were times. When they ran from deep, it was never overly comfortable at all times, and there seemed to be passages in the game as well where balls were just bouncing around and it was very loose, and they seemed to bounce into French hands more often than not. So there was that
even the spider
quality
cam
to the game.
They got a lot of luck. The ball hit the camera in the first play, and they got to pin Ireland back and got 3 points out of it. Might have been more. There was an Irish player got a hand to a ball. Put them under play. One of the French players was onside. Things were going their way. Even Thomas Ramos shovels it on in his own 22, and they got a try off it. That could equally have run. So they did get breaks, but I thought they had Ireland on the rack. I felt the momentum in the stadium was completely firmly with them 10 minutes after half time.
Yeah.
And what impressed me most about Ireland, one of the things that impressed me, because there's a lot that impressed me with Ireland at the weekend, was the way they kicked their way back into control of the game with their reserve halfbacks on the pitch. I think of James Lowe's banana kick that almost resulted in a 50-22. I think of Hugo Keenan's actual 50-22. They were huge moments in the game. They've adapted to that rule or that law change more than any. They've kicked more 50-22s by far than any team in international rugby. Think of how they've adapted to the goal line dropout with that pre-planned try. Again, they're smart as well as everything else. They're adapting to the way the laws have been changed. They've saw how World Rugby want to speed up the game, and they go, right, we'll do 46 minutes of ball and play and we'll be able for it. There's something going on there behind the scenes where they are adapting much quicker to the way the game is moving than everyone else. Even Andy Farrell in 2020 when he was getting heavily criticised, Eddie Jones was saying, no, it's all about kicking now. It's all about the team who kicks more. Remember, England won the Autumn Nations Cup playing terrible rugby, whereas Ireland were trying to play this heads-up play and it wasn't working. Well, fast forward 3 years, Eddie Jones is gone, and Andy Farrell saw the game changing in a way that no one else did. That deserves an awful lot of credit. And none of us saw it. I certainly didn't.
Yeah. There's a hubris in billing ourselves as pretty much the sharpest, smartest team in the world, but there's a lot of evidence if you were to make that argument. There you go. That was a taster of Monday Night Rugby. Full conversation with Rory and Liam is waiting for you on podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll have Brian O'Driscoll tomorrow. We'll have Jerry and Andy on Wednesday Night Rugby. So that's the plan this week.
Monday Night Rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, main sponsor of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us.